Welcome to Mixing for Beginners. I am Matt. In this video, we're going to talk about EQing a vocal track. This is the third video, I think, in a series of maybe 5 or 6 videos that'll talk about mixing vocals. They're so important, I really wanted to dedicate some, multiple videos to it. In the first video, we talked about comping and editing a vocal track together. In the second video, we pitch corrected the track using Melodyne, and so now where we are in the process is we have a pitch corrected final vocal take, and the pitch correction has been frozen and baked into the track. So now we're ready to go with EQing. Now, if you haven't watched the first 2 videos, I highly recommend you do it because it just gives you some of the background and basis for what we're doing right now. But anyway, so now before any other effects, we want to EQ. That's really the next step in the process, because the reason why we do that is because if there are frequencies that we don't want in the track, it doesn't make sense to put those through compressors and then take them out later, or put them through verb and then take them out later. So we want to edit for frequencies right away. So why are we EQing any tracks, particularly vocals? Well, it's important that if we're recording, that we make sure every instrument that we have in our orchestration, in our recording, if it's in there, it should be important enough to hear. We want to make sure that that's audible and that people can discern what it is. Otherwise, it just creates a clutter in the mix and it makes it harder to discern or hear other things. And so we don't want that. And so there are a few ways that we can provide space in the mix to hear everything that's going on. One way is volume, another way is panning, and still a third way is orchestration, deciding whether, sometimes I get giddy and I put too many things into my mix and it doesn't we probably don't need to have it all in there. So my editing process always looks like me going through and saying, do I really need that instrument there? And if it's just creating clutter, then I get it out, no matter how much I've fallen in love with that part. So, but the other way is through EQing. If we make sure every instrument and every voice has its own place in the frequency spectrum, then it won't clash with anything else that's going on. Now, there will always be overlaps, of course, like guitar and keyboard and vocals can be in the same frequency range, or kick drum and bass, they can as well. But we want to do our best job possible, really designating as much of the frequency spectrum to each instrument alone as we possibly can. All right, so first thing, this is what the end state that we're going for. Here's the vocals in the mix.
You wear the flag on your dress like a cataract. The dual colors see the truth and then filter it. And now your mind's eye is bruised like a pugilist. You evangelize in line with the saberists, agent.
All right, so to get there, let me just get my keyboard up too, just in case. To get there, the first thing that we're going to do is EQ. So over here on the left, in the left-hand side menu, I really like Ableton's EQ8. I use that EQ all the time. It may not be the best sounding for certain things, but I love the interface. And I find that if you're cutting frequencies, not adding frequencies, it does a great job. So over here on the left-hand menu under audio effects, under EQ and filters, you can see the EQ8. I never use the EQ3, even though if I'm EQing a kick drum or a bass or something, maybe you don't need more than 3 bands. But I just love the interface of the EQ8 so much that this is what I use all the time. So just pull. All you do is you could either drag it right to the track here on the right hand side, or just down into the audio effects window down below. And then what I like to do, not everybody does this, is I like to expand it by hitting the little arrow right here, and just giving me a lot of space to operate. And one of the reasons that I really like this EQ is because how big and clean it looks, but also because it shows us the frequency spectrum.
You wear the flag on your dress like a cat.
So that visual response really helps me. Okay, so how do we approach this? Well, the first thing that I want to do, remember I talked about every instrument should have its own kind of area in the frequency spectrum. Well, there are things that are showing up on this EQ when I play the vocal track that don't need to be there, that are not actually the sound of my. There's rumbles or there's noise. it's particularly lower in the spectrum than the notes that I'm creating. And so you can see it down here.
You wear the flag
See all this stuff
on your
down here?
dress like a
What is this going on?
cataract.
I'm not singing those notes. So the first thing that I always do is I get rid of all the stuff on the bottom. So I take the sharpest angle I can, which is this up here. You see a little X4 here. And I drag it
You wear the flag on your dress like a cataract. The dual
to cut out all that stuff. Now, a good way to decide, the question's always like, how far do you go? How much do you cut? And a lot of times you may feel like you're worried about cutting too much. That's why it's also important once you do this to listen to it in the mix, because sometimes you may think you're cutting out too much low end and it might be removing some of the character of your voice. That could be an issue, and I'll show you how to kind of avoid it. But listen to it in the mix, because it may not sound like that when everything else is going on. In fact, you may want sort of a higher end to your vocal anyway so that it sticks out in the mix. But every mix is different. But here's what I look for. What I try to do is start a little bit higher than I'm going to cut out, and I like to work backwards. And where I stop is where I feel like the tonality and the timbre and the character of my voice comes back. So if it's up here,
You wear the flag on
that's a telephone booth, right? So here we go.
You wear the flag on your dress like a cataract. The dual colors see the truth and then filter it.
Now I feel like right about there it sounds like me. And so you can look and see what the frequency is here, because we're using the first band down here on the left-hand side, and you can see at 191 hertz I am cutting out everything below it. So let's just listen again.
You wear the flag on your dress like a cataract. The dual colors see the truth and then filter it. And now your mind.
Yeah, I might give myself a little bit more, like 178. I think that's a good place to start. So now what we're doing is we're leaving space for everything that's going on below there, kit and bass. Now my vocal is not muddying that range anymore. So getting rid of that right off the bat is going to help the mix. Okay, so what do we do next? Well, the next thing we're looking for is, so I feel like my recording path for vocals is actually pretty good. I record in a vocal booth. It's there's hardly any reflection in there. It's a good. I use a good mic, and yeah. So like I think my signal path is really clean, and I don't get a lot of weird stuff. Also, the mic that I use and my setup, I feel like it really captures the timbre of my voice without capturing a bunch of unwanted frequencies. But that's not always the case. Maybe you're in a room you don't like, or you don't have the most expensive mic, or you don't have a channel strip or some processing going in that will sort of even things out. Usually if you're recording with a nice preamp and a nice compressor, et cetera, you can sort of even things out, and you're not getting weird frequencies sticking out. But so there isn't a ton in here for me, but there are some that ring true. So what we're looking for, what we're searching through, is any frequencies that are going to ring out weirdly, and we're just going to cut them out. So how we're EQing is by subtraction. So how we're going to do that is by sweeping through the frequency spectrum, the whole range. And so let's just take the second band here with number 2, and this is what we want the shape to look like. And what you'll see here, and the Q is how open or closed this is. So what we're going to do is we're going to close the Q all the way to 18. So this is a more precise movements, and you can tell once I grab 2, see how skinny that is, right? And so what we want to do is listen back and pull this across the frequency spectrum and look for weird ringing out notes that sound bad. Now, there are some notes that will ring out that make sense as like an overtone series for, say, the key that you're in, the key that you're singing in, or just the natural overtone series of your voice. And everybody is different. Everybody's voice is different. So sometimes, even if they ring out strong, I might keep them. I notice this in keyboards too. If I'm playing like organs and in a particular key, the emphasis, the frequencies that may ring out, I may want to keep them in because it makes sense in the key that I'm in. But the ones that are not in key, that are super strong and ring out, we want to get rid of them. So let's try to find some together. And also, so I've got my looper on here too by engaging the loop button right up there. And this is just going to loop around, and we're just going to slowly search. So here we go.
You wear the flag on your dress like a cataract. The dual colors see the truth and then filter it. And now your mind's eye is bruised like a pugilist. You evangelize in line with the saperists. You wear
Like
the
this guy I
flag
don't
on-
like very much. I'm gonna pull him out a little bit. And you just have to notch it. You don't have to like take it all the way out. Unless sometimes I have noticed if they're super strong, you can cut it all the way out. But I just want to create a bit of a notch there. So let's move on to the next one. This is 3. And then remember, we're going to go down here and change the Q to 18. And let's just start from here and go up.
You wear the flag on your dress like a cataract. The dual colors see the truth and then filter it. And now your mind's eye is bruised like a pugilist.
That one's probably okay.
In line with the saper. You wear the flag on your dress like a cataract. The dual colors see the truth and then filter it. And now your mind's eye is bruised like a pugilist.
That one, though, I don't like very much. Let's get... Oh, wrong one. This guy. Doop. Let's get rid of 4 here for a second. Oh, yeah. So 4 is next. Same shape. Q to 18. Start back here. Actually, notch this a little bit more. Yeah. If you want to get real precise, too, you can just use the gain knob here. Instead of dragging it with your mouse. Sometimes that's more precise. That way you don't move left to right. But let me give that guy a little bit of a nudge. All right, so now we're going to start from over here from 4.
You wear the flag on your dress like a cataract.
That guy I don't like.
Colors see the
See how it's like a sharp sound? It rings out. And like I said, my my setup is pretty good, so I don't have that many. Sometimes I've had to EQ the crap out of stuff because it's just a complete mess. But my setup's pretty good, so sometimes you'll get them, they're just huge rings and they hurt your ears and they're terrible. But it's not so bad with what I've got here. So let's check this one next.
You wear the flag on your dress like a cataract. The dual colors see the truth and then filter it. And now your mind's eye is bruised like a pugilist.
That's a weird one. Get out of there. Let's try 6. And the other thing too is, so say you run out of space here. You know, you only have 8 bands you can work with. You can just add another EQ on next to this one and just start above where you ended in the last one. Here we go.
You wear the flag on your dress like a cataract. The dual colors.
It's a weird one. And 7.
You wear the flag on your dress like a cataract.
Move the
dual
Q.
colors see the truth and then filter it. And now your mind's eye is bruised like a
Some of them are
pugilist.
ring, but like I said, they're in the overtone series are okay.
Line with the saperist. You wear the flag on your dress like a cataract. The dual colors see the truth.
It's a major third, I think, when I'm singing in minor right there. So we'll get rid of that. And let's check one more here. And you can decide like how precise you want. Like you could probably cut out a bunch of stuff if you wanted to, little notches here and there. It's up to you. Just hear how it sounds before and after. And if you think so how I'll know I've gone too far is it'll start to sound hollow to me. It won't sound natural anymore. It won't sound as full or rich anymore. We don't want that. So we don't want to take away the character of the voice. That's really what sells a vocalist to the listeners. That's character as their character. So that's how I'll know I'm too far. But let's see here.
You wear the flag on your dress like a cataract. The dual colors see the truth and then filter it. And now your mind's eye is bruised like.
Once I get up high like that, I don't tend to do too much with the voice because they're beyond a place where the listener is going to be able to discern something too funky, and it just sort of creates. That's really where a lot of the high overtones are, and so a lot of times I won't go too high up. I guess is what I'll say. But anyway, this seems pretty good to me.
You wear the flag on your dress like a cataract. The dual colors see the truth and then filter it.
Yeah, it sounds cleaner to me, particularly in the low end. You can't hear there's a little bit of rumble and mess down there. All right, so we'll put this back on. So that's the first step is sweeping the frequency spectrum. Now the second thing I want to do is and the same, you can do this male or female voices. You do the same. It's the same exact technique, no matter what voice you're doing. The only thing is the low end, you're probably going to sweep further on a female voice. But I always am looking for for the most part, looking for more high end out of the vocals. Sometimes you have mics that really color your vocals and so that the high frequencies stand out more, depending on what you're using. But the mics that I use are relatively flat, so I'm always looking for more high end on my voice in particular. You may not always need to do this, but I typically do this with my voice. I will stick a second. So as I mentioned, I don't like how Ableton's EQ boosts signals. I think it's a little harsh. So instead of that, this is the technique that I use. And shout out to Realist Puppet, Reed Stefan, for showing this technique. His videos are amazing. So how I'll do what I'll do is this. I'll cut down. I'll put a second EQ on. I'll cut the low end down by a few decibels. Probably somewhere around, I don't know, like 800 or so. And I'll go down maybe like 3 decibels or so, maybe 4 decibels, I think. I think that's a little bit more of a cut. And then, so what ends up happening here is then I will boost the gain on the plugin itself, on the EQ itself. So I'll boost this to 2. And what that does in effect is give us more high-end pass-through without actually boosting those high-end frequencies and making the harsh sound. So let's see what this sounds like.
You wear the flag on your dress like a cataract. The dual colors see the...
Yeah, so right now there's more... Actually, I think I want to bring this down a little bit further. But there seems to be...
You wear the flag on your dress like a cataract.
Maybe that's a little too much here.
The dual colors see the truth and then filter it. And now your mind's out.
Yeah, I think probably -4 is where we're going to want to be. So I don't want to lose the character by cutting out too much of the mid and low range, but I do want to boost some of the high. So I think I went too far with 5, but 4's going to sound better, I think.
You wear the flag on your dress like a cataract.
Yeah, what it does to me is it just gives a lot more clarity to the voice by doing this double EQ stack. So I think that sounds like a pretty good take with pretty good EQ on that. I feel like I sound like me, but it's nice and clear, and it didn't really change my tone. So what I want to do, the last thing that I want to do is actually show you the beginning of the next step of the process, and that is this. One of the cool things that Ableton allows you to do is grouping audio effects together. Like you can group tracks, but you can also group audio effects. And so what you do is you just select both of the EQs here, and if you hit Command G, it creates a group. And what this does, so the first thing that it does is it allows you to save the group. Like you could call, maybe you tend to use, you use the same vocalist all the time, or it's you use the same mic and same setup all the time. So most likely your EQ is going to be similar, if not the same, for every track that you do. It might be different, but it at least gives you a starting place. So right now I can save this group of EQs, and then I can just apply it to my voice later on and just make little adjustments when I need it. So by hitting the little save button right here, it created a place. And what it does is just allows me to save it in my user library. I'm not going to do that because I've already done it. In fact, if I go to user library, plugin chains, I've made one called Lead Vox EQs. And now I can just apply it to any track, any of my vocal tracks that I want to in the future. So that's the first thing it does. But the second thing it does is if you go on the left-hand side here, you can open up the group. And what it does is here is your rack. And this is, see how it says EQ8? You could just call this like, you can rename this to, hold on. Let me just, to center vocals. Center vocals. I can duplicate this now by hitting Command D, and we'll duplicate it one more time. And so now the signal is split into 3 of me. And what I can do from here is I can spread them out. So this is C for center, so I can take the one on top and go -20 and put it at 20 degrees to the left. I can put the one on the bottom to just regular +20, which gives me +20 to the left, or to the right. And so Now I have, and so each one of, if you click on them, you see they're each the same. It's the same. They're all three are EQ'd the same way. Well, what if I want to expand the width of my voice because I want it to be really prominent in the mix? Well, now I've got one center and I've got one 20 degrees to the right and 20 degrees to the left. It just gives me a wider range. But say like the ones on the left or right, I just want a little bit quieter. I can put, negative 6 dB. And so the center one will be more prominent. And what if I want to have a lot of clarity? Well, I can make the center one free of any spatial effects like reverb. But maybe I put reverb on the left and the right one. That puts the reverb a little bit left and right, but still gives me a central like presence so people can understand what I'm singing. So this grouping mechanism and then creating racks out of it is just such an amazing tool in Ableton that allows you to do a ton of stuff. So anyway, I use this type of grouping on a lot of my vocal tracks, particularly my main vocal tracks. And then from there, so maybe I EQ it a little bit different. Maybe I keep more of the low end on the left and the right-hand side, but I take a little bit out in the center. So it's once again, it's clearer in the center. There's just a ton of stuff that you can do. So I just wanted to show you that. And now the vocal track is ready to compress, which we will do on the next episode. Thanks.
Arrests agent.